Good afternoon. This is Tamrat Madan from Little Ethiopia. Today I'm with my host is out of town, Patricia McDougall. I am on the WLVS on the scene, Patricia McDougall, celebrity photographer. So today we'll be sharing with our listeners about the 125th birthday celebration of the iconic emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie I, and we'll have a little bit of other discussions. Later we'll have a guest. So can we go ahead and have some of those pictures, sir? Okay, these are some of the pictures when Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia came for the second state visit to the United States, 1963. Here he's seated with President Kennedy. Next one, please. Here is as when the emperor arrived at the in Washington D.C. He was welcomed with John F. Kennedy and his wife, and next to Miss Kennedy is one of his granddaughters. Well, this one happened later. After the emperor was in October 1963 here in the United States for the state visit. His host was killed the next month, and the emperor came back to attend his funeral services. He was among the few dignitaries who were here, including the Belgian king and the president of France, General de Gaulle, and the German chancellor, and others. Here, the emperor is greeting the First Lady at the Union Station here in Washington, D.C. And here is the emperor saluting the president. And here is the great welcome made by the citizens of the District of Columbia. He's riding in an open automobile with the president. This is at the funeral services. Here on the same one, the next time he came back here, 1963. The same thing. The same thing. Here the emperor returned back in 1968 to place a wreath in front of the African-American Civil War leader, Martin Luther King, after he was killed. I believe this was in 1968. These are all you have? There were some more, but probably you might have missed them. Anyway, to make matters very short, that we're bringing today, because his birthday will be celebrated this month. It is on July 23rd, and President Kennedy's 100th anniversary birthday was also celebrated. So we like to bring the connection between the two great leaders, and what an amazing welcome President John F. Kennedy did the emperor. And as soon as our technician is ready, we'll let you see a video that will give you the details of his trip in the United States. Are you ready, sir? All right, go ahead then.
Pour la défense de la moralité internationale, du droit.
The language is French. The degree is Doctor of Humane Letters. The place is the United States. A world leader and educator is being honored. His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia. He is no stranger to the atmosphere of learning found on the campus of Georgetown University. Here, students are in direct association with world-renowned scholars in the field of foreign affairs, the arts, and the humanities. Here, the inquiring mind finds nourishment. During the 8-day visit of Haile Selassie to the United States, he will participate in many ceremonies that demonstrate the respect of a friendly nation. train with several private cars carries the Emperor and his official party swiftly to Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. This will be the first meeting for President John F. Kennedy and Mrs. Kennedy with the man who played a leading role in the creation of African unity.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know I speak in behalf of all of my fellow Americans in welcoming His Imperial Majesty back to the United States. Since His Majesty visited the United States nearly a decade ago, we have seen one of the most extraordinary revolutions in history, and that has been the appearance on the world scene of 29 independent countries in the short space of less than 10 years, including over 150 million people. The conference recently held in His Majesty's capital served, I think, to bring together in a great cooperative movement the people of most of these countries. And the success of that conference was due in no small part to the leadership of our distinguished guest. His efforts to move his country forward and provide a better life for its people, and his efforts throughout the world, which stretch back over 30 or 40 years. For all of this, Your Majesty, we take the greatest pride in welcoming you here. You do us honor, and I can assure you that there is no guest that we will receive in this country that will give a greater sense of livelier pride and satisfaction to the American people than your presence here today. Your Majesty, you're most welcome.
Mr. President, Mrs. Kennedy, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply touched by the generous words of welcome which you have addressed to me, Mr. President, and by the warmth with which the American people have greeted me during the few short hours I have been in the United States. In the decade which has elapsed since my first voyage to America, the face of the globe has been vastly altered. Africa and Asia have been transformed into continents whose people are almost entirely removed from the subjugated status which was the lot of so many of them but a few short years ago. As free men, we Africans are now seeking the unity and the oneness which will enable us to put our freedom to the best use. The service of the peoples of our continent, the defense of right and justice, the protection of the peace.
የህዝባችን ኑሮ ደረጃ ተሻሽሎ ድህነትና ድንቁርና ከዓለም እንዲወገድ ቁርጥ ሐሳብ አድርገናል።
A group of Ethiopian women are among the welcoming crowds. The Emperor of Ethiopia has come to Washington to discuss important aspects of world peace and economic progress. He confers with President Kennedy on African problems and aspirations in these vital areas. Memorial to Abraham Lincoln. The Emperor and his party arrive at the Lincoln Memorial to place a silver wreath in honor of the American president, who is an international symbol of unity and freedom. President Kennedy's Secretary of Interior, Stuart Udall, accompanies the Emperor. Included in the Emperor's party are Ras Imru Haile Selassie, Ambassador Dinky, Ethiopian Ambassador to the United States, and Ambassador Corey, United States Ambassador to Ethiopia. Mr. Udall reads from Abraham Lincoln's immortal Gettysburg Address.
They gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
At the National Legislature, the Vice President of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson, and leaders of the Senate and House of Representatives hold discussions with the Emperor. This is where the men and women elected by the American people make the laws which govern them and determine American policies and world affairs. In the same room where President Kennedy holds his press conferences, the Emperor meets with over 500 representatives of the American and world press. He describes the purpose of his visit: to renew his acquaintance with our nation and to ensure that the ties of friendship which have linked the two countries over the years will be maintained and strengthened. In reply to one question, the Emperor says, "What interests us most in Africa today is the collaboration for the purpose of achieving unity for the benefit of Africa and as a contribution to world peace." Departing Washington, the Secretary of State, Dean Rusk, and Mrs. Rusk accompany the royal party to a heliport at the Naval Observatory near downtown Washington. Members of the diplomatic corps pay their respects to the Emperor and members of the official party, which includes his granddaughter, Her Highness the Princess Ruth Desta. The first stage of the journey is aboard President Kennedy's helicopter to the airport, then on to New York City. America's largest city, towers of concrete and steel and organized stone probe the sky. Here, knowledge and culture are available to all who seek it. In libraries, in art museums, in cultural centers. Here is the library of the famed Columbia University, where Princess Ruth and many other Ethiopians have studied. The mayor of the city of New York, Robert F. Wagner, and Mrs. Wagner greet the Lion of Judah on the steps of the City Hall. En route to the United Nations, where an open forum, nations can share the benefits of peaceful association. Secretary General U Thant greets the Emperor and is presented with the Charter of African Unity drafted at the Addis Ababa Conference and ratified by the African states. From the people of Ethiopia, a gift to the United Nations, a finely carved miniature of the great obelisk of Aksum, the ancient capital of Ethiopia. The Emperor addresses a special meeting of the General Assembly.
ክቡር ፕሬዚዳንት፣ የተከበራችሁ መልእክተኞች፣
The Charter of the United Nations expresses the noblest aspirations of man, the abjuration of force in the settlement of disputes between states, the assurance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion, the safeguarding of international peace and security.
ሰብአዊ መብቱ እንዲጠበቅለት ለማረጋገጥ የዓለም ሰላምና ጸጥታ እንዲጠበቅ ለማድረግ የሚያስችሉትን የሰው ልጅ የሚመኛቸውን ከፍተኛ ዓላማዎች የያዘ ነው።
Television is another medium of communication through which millions of Americans see and hear the Emperor. On a program devoted to current events, the sight and sound of free discussion is transmitted to the television audience. Gathered in the Emperor's hotel suite is an important resource of his country. Young people increasing their knowledge in the universities of America. One of the most satisfying moments of his tour, a face-to-face meeting with many of the Ethiopian students. In gratitude, they present him with a silver service. He thanks them and replies that the gift he wants most is unity of purpose, their cooperation in quickening the pace of Ethiopian development. All are working toward this goal. They include Ephraim Isaac, who conducts the Harvard Graduate School Chorus. His mission? To found a conservatory in Addis Ababa, taking his doctorate at Harvard University, where President Kennedy was also graduated. At Cornell University, Miss Abba Walder-Rufael, a graduate nurse from Ethiopia, takes her degree in medical education so that she may go back to her country and instruct others how to teach this science. On the same campus, Bayena Chichai-Balu, a former government agricultural agent from Harar in the eastern part of Ethiopia, digs deeper into the science of agronomy, learning to overcome the common problems that face men who work the soil in all parts of the world. His specialty is animal husbandry. Laboratory and field experiments relate to the types of problems he will find in helping to attain greater yields from Ethiopian fields and livestock. Aviation is essential to a nation like Ethiopia, with rugged terrain and isolated areas. This young man, Bayena Gulilat, is mastering the rudiments of flight at a Washington flying school, studying to be a commercial pilot, secure in the knowledge that the skills he is learning will be of importance to his country. The knowledge and skills of America have been made available to these students through the dedication and foresight of their Emperor, Haile Selassie. His visit to the United States is brightened by their progress, and the United States has been honored by his presence.
Centre pour la défense de la Mauritanie.
Well, thank you so much for putting together the video and the pictures. As you have seen from the video, the Emperor of Ethiopia was here 55 years ago and received an amazing welcome from the people of Washington and New York and other places. Now, since 2013, Washington, D.C. and Addis Ababa are sister cities, and the connection between the two countries is really, really great. And as you see in the two speeches he made in front of the president and his wife, and at the United Nations, he spoke the Ethiopian national language known as Amharic, which is also one of the 6 working languages in Washington, D.C. That happened at the time when the late council member Jim Graham introduced a resolution or a bill, they call it in 2003, and it was worked out for several years. And as a result of that, about 6 countries, 5 others like the French, the Spanish, and a few others are also working languages. And Councilmember Graham introduced Amharic because he had quite a lot of constituents in his Ward 1. And a week ago, we celebrated his life at the All Souls Church, and I had an opportunity to speak for a short while, but we are preparing to do another larger celebration of his life because of the amazing support he has for the Ethiopians in the diaspora and his interest on Ethiopian history. As you saw here, the emperor gave the Aksum obelisk, which was the Aksum used to be the ancient capital of Ethiopia, and council member was amazed of those history, and he was planning to put at the corner of Nines and U replica of Aksum, but unfortunately it didn't happen for various other reasons. So what we are trying to do is we had a speaker, but it happened didn't show up. She was supposed to come and discuss about the upcoming celebration of the emperor's 125th anniversary, but probably should come next week, or the other work can come will share with us what kind of planning they have. But Little Ethiopia, under its Ethio Mixer USA program, will do a special program for the council member to discuss some of the activities he wanted to introduce to the city, because he was very amazed with some of the historical significances and also some of the destinations in Ethiopia that he believes those things in his Ward 1. And some of the activities, which including the introduction of the Ethiopian national language into the Language Access Act, includes introducing our community with other groups so that we can work together. Amongst one of the projects that was helped by the council member was that he introduced us with an amazing activist in the city, the Reverend Melvin Dill, who is the founding the founding director of the African dancers and the African heritage dancers and drummers, with whom we celebrated our 12th anniversary last December 26th. We have what we call a yearly celebration of the Pan-African, the yearly celebration of the Pan-African holiday celebration of Kwanzaa and Ganna. Ganna is an Ethiopian Christmas, which is we celebrated for the sake of the collaboration. We celebrated earlier, about 7-8 days prior to how the Ganna is happening. So there has been a lot of. So we'd like to use this opportunity to really honor these two legendaries, the Emperor of Ethiopia, for his amazing contribution. As you heard, the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, has been spoke about how the emperor helped to put together 29 countries and over 155 million people who became free, joined as one nation called an organization called the OAU, Organization of African Unity. So as you heard on the video earlier, it has given you a very good highlight. Continuing our discussion, the other thing is recently there were some changes within our country that were told. The details not yet. We don't have full details, but as soon as we follow the full details, we bring it next week. That there has been some changes about this very important national language might be changed in the city. That will not be spoken in the future. Probably will be limited because the government believes that another ethnic groups should have to share the language within the capital city, but we don't have too much detail at this time, but next week or the other week when we get more detail, we'll discuss it. We'd like to bring to your attention that people who like to get more information about what we are doing, as Little Ethiopias, we are giving education for people, especially African Americans who have had a very, very long historical connections with Ethiopia, beginning from 1808, when the first African Americans and Ethiopian seamen founded the Abyssinian Baptist Church because of a discriminatory situation of the seating arrangement in a prior church. Therefore, we are trying to work or bring to the attention of the younger generation, both Ethiopian and African American and all others, to know more about Ethiopia's important contribution to the freedom of Africa. Especially, there has been an attempt by 15 European countries in 1884 to completely scramble Africa, and that didn't completely happen because of the patriotic and resilient people of Ethiopia's efforts to divert it and have freedom in Africa since that time. So, as was reported, there has been almost 90% of African nations were colonized around 1913. So, during our educational effort to bring to the attention of these important situations in Ethiopia and Africa, we like people to check on our magazine. I'm going to say it again. It's called littleethiopia.org. It's called littleethiopia.org. And if anybody has got any questions, can also email us at littleethiopia@gmail.com. I'm going to repeat both. Email littleethiopia@gmail.com. Webpage littleethiopia.org. So there are plenty of information. If you go through the Little Ethiopia .org magazine, you can see we like to be as much as you can to bring information that are related about Ethiopia from any sources. We don't filter it, or we don't make our opinion. Of course, occasionally we may do our own editorial. Otherwise, we just present it as it is. For instance, if there are information that's coming directly from Ethiopia through other sources, we put it on the magazine. So that way people have got their own judgment. As a matter of fact, if you go through the magazine, especially the most recent ones, you see quite a few different topics that include people who came to the United States and made it big amongst themselves. Are some film actors, Ethiopian, and chefs, artists. We, as much as you can, we bring those information on our webpage so that the younger generation will have an opportunity to get some role models from Ethiopia. So it is a program where we are trying to educate. That's our purpose. Excuse me, sir. Can you put a few of the pictures again? Maybe do you have? Yeah. Okay. Here is one picture where the President John F. Kennedy is sitting next to the Emperor. At the time the Emperor came here to the United States, I mean, President John F. Kennedy have made an amazing welcome. As a result, 2 years ago, we honored President Kennedy through one of his officers for the Peace Corps, Professor Theodore Vestal, to come and place a wreath in front of the African American Civil War Memorial in expressing our gratitude for the amazing welcome he gave to the Emperor. As you probably go through the 19 minutes or 20 minutes video, you can see how much the American people welcomed the Emperor. And as a result of that, we have given special commendation to the former president, and been very, very happy to share again about how we feel about it. Well, this is a very beautiful picture which is coming again. Here you see the emperor with full military marshal's uniform is standing between President Kennedy and the First Lady, and the lady, the princess who's standing next to her is known as Princess Ruth Desta, and these are amazing pictures that shows how much at that time the president was very, very happy about the emperor's work. The emperor is believed to be the one who encouraged and helped the founding of the Organization of African Unity on May 25, 1963. And he was invited to the United States within a few months. I believe he came to the United States around October 1963, and he died after that in 1963. So as a matter of fact, we celebrate that founding of the organization every year here by Little Ethiopia, so that the younger generation will have a very good information about what happened at that time. The trip of 1963 is not the first time for the emperor. Also, it's not the first time for the emperor to meet an American president. The emperor was here in 1954 and met President Eisenhower, and before that, in 1945, the emperor met another president, President Roosevelt, on a warship at Suez Canal. So, the emperor played a very, very big role, especially one of the things which really made him very popular and be a celebrity was the fact that he went and challenged the League of Nations in Geneva when Ethiopia was occupied by the Italians, because as you know, the international organization made some sanctions, but it was not effective, because if they had at that time taken serious steps like blocking the Suez Canal or cutting the oil that is going to the Italian government, the situation would have been completely changed. But unfortunately, since the European imperialists didn't do that, Ethiopia suffered a lot of consequences. It's believed that over 1 million people have killed and several property damages has happened. The war took about 5 years, from 1935 to 1941. The emperor was forced to exile to Great Britain because of the Italians' usage of the chemical war. So, there is a lot of history. The younger generation will learn about it, and also make sure that this month will try to honor our friend, Council Member Jim Graham, was going to help us disseminate this very critical information to his council and the rest of the citizens of Washington. But unfortunately, because of a few problems, it didn't happen. But would like to share it in back-to-back Ethio Mixer USS in this month. And I'm getting a sign that we're going to close the radio in the program right now. We'll see you next week, and next week I'm sure our partner, my co-host will be here, and we'll discuss it further. Thank you very much for listening our show. This is Tamrat Medin from Little Ethiopia, and my co-host is not here, Patricia McDougall. And thanks very much, everybody. Thank you.